Welcome back to another episode of Chumming with the Spirits, your great podcast on the paranormal, all things weird, based here in Kansas City.
With an amazing shark logo.
Yes, amazing. Hopefully we get a better, more badass logo here.
In a little bit?
In a little bit, yeah.
We're growing.
We're growing.
We're growing.
Not just wide.
I am?
Learning, and we're growing and expanding as always.
So,
Fireball shots to start the chumming off.
Cheers.
So not to get off subject, did you guys know I was in a golf tournament yesterday for charity? I had 10 of those during a hot day, slamming beers.
Tequila.
Quit looking at me like that. And drinking fruity tequila shot from Moonbeam.
And you just barely died on one.
What the? Well, mine were really ice cold.
Okay.
Yeah. So, to be fair.
On this episode, we wanted to kind of talk about a subject that I'm fascinated with, and I hope by the time this episode's over, these two get a little bit more fascinated about the subject.
It's all imaginary.
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical on going into it, how interested they are about it, but I don't know if have any of you
So excited.
No, do any of you you guys suck.
We're in a sweat lodge. It's hard to do this.
The subject is tulpas, and I think it was really popularized in pop culture currently with the show Supernatural, with the Winchester brothers, because in season 1 they go to on a hunt, and there's a paranormal team trying to film a video in a house, and guy with an axe, and they determine that it's a tulpa. If you don't know what a tulpa is, the concept has been around for, I would say, millennia, probably.
Really?
Hundreds of years, close to 1,000 years.
What's the root of that?
The root of...
Because where's tulpa come from? It's actually based in...
It's kind of like a Buddhist...
there you go.
Yeah, philosophy that if you think about something long enough and hard enough and have enough people start thinking about it and believing it, that you can will it into creation.
I believe that was around like the 1500s. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, around there.
Yeah, so
it may predate that. We just don't have any writing on it.
Yeah.
The biggest
But the name
example
comes from
in current times is the phenomenon of the Slender Man. That was a subreddit story that gained enough traction.
It's now being captured on trail cams and videos.
Shit, they made a horror movie called Slender Man.
Well, and also
video game even.
It also led to murder. 2 young girls taking another girl out and she actually survived, didn't she? She survived. She got stabbed 19 times mauled, because they wanted to protect their family by sacrificing. Yeah.
When did this happen?
About 8 years
A few years ago. Yeah, I was gonna say 8 or 9 years ago. Yeah. They took out their buddy, which is why I don't go Star watching with you. And
I think there's another reason you don't go.
Well, I heard
they have to deal with probing.
Yeah, well, it depends on who's doing the probing. But anyway,
you have to ask.
Also, the Hat Man is also another tulpa.
Yes, that's huge.
There's actually a lot more tulpas out there than what people realize.
Well, there's personal tulpas, right?
Yep. The imaginary friends.
And I don't want to get you off track because I know this is your subject, so I don't want to go any.
It's not like we would know anything about it.
Yeah.
So when you
probably should have researched.
When you really think about it, any supernatural or paranormal entity, cryptids, anything, could technically be categorized as some sort of tulpa.
Well, that's what I really want. And if we
Paul Bunyan,
if we can take a step that, and I wanted to ask you, I'm being true to form because I thought about this when I was researching tulpas, and people having personal tulpas.
Hey, just, I'm proud of you. You did some research.
No, I really didn't.
Oh. Yeah.
So anyway,
he Googled 5 seconds.
So I have a little background in that. The Patterson film.
That's a good point.
So they were out there looking for it.
Man in a suit. Did they make all the belief? Make all of a sudden all these Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, all these creatures come across?
So there comes a fine line on that. Is how far do you think tulpas go? Some people they're just memory, like your imaginary friend, you only see that.
Right, I'm talking about manifesting this creature.
Manifesting
creature, Bigfoot.
So,
because we don't know what he is. He disappears. There's so many things that he could be portal jumping and all that kind of stuff.
It has to be something physical because it can leave footprints. Right. So, I mean, there is a chance that it could be manifested from that. Except at that moment in time, there wasn't the internet. That's one of the things that's kind of been brought up on technology. When you talk about Slender Man on Reddit, it became millions of people knowing about it all at once and believing in it.
Yep.
That's what they think gave it enough energy that it's now being seen.
But
Bigfoot,
so big though when it came out.
No, the Patterson Field. When you go back and look, we had sightings from Ape Canyon, 1924, Portlock, 1945. They were mountain devils and all that. Even when they did that film footage and they released it, Bigfoot, the name came up a couple years later. Boggy Creek was 72.
Yeah.
It still wasn't until like the Bigfoot truck of the 80s that it really took off. They started in 67. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until the 80s Bigfoot, $6 Million Man.
Well, I know I'm older than you.
Yeah.
By a few years.
Well, wow.
Easy. What the fetch, man? I thought we were bros. So, saying that, man, I remember as a kid, Mom and Dad, they saw this film, and I was just so fascinated as a young child, very young, just trying to gain something back. Holy cow, and we all just believed in it. So, my dad's a very smart man. Well, at least I thought he was. I think there was a lot of belief that did we bring this being into existence by doing that. So, and I bring that to because I know you're into cryptids as much as I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's very plausible.
Yeah. I hate that word.
I mean, you can't rule it out.
I wouldn't put it in a box. So
okay, I'll leave it alone. Let's get back to your thing.
That is a interesting concept. The more people that knew about it, the more sightings that we're having.
Mm-hmm. So I'd like to ask you guys out there what you think. Is that a possibility? And I also want to ask our really good buddy Matt Orton with Drunken Cryptids, great podcast, great guy. From what little I know of him,
or John
Fike, even John, John Methinkamp. What do you guys? Do you think possible? We believe this thing into existence?
Yeah, and let us know. Leave us a comment in the section comments for comments.
Or if you think we're in left field where we go a lot, it's okay. Go ahead and comment.
So I wanted to bring in another talking point real quick because I found this very interesting when I was doing my research that they've done multiple studies and found that neurodivergent people or people with autism or ADHD.
Well, we're getting a little closer.
Were higher.
I feel like I'm being picked on.
Well, hey, you can't tell.
I went to K-State.
If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it might be a duck.
I mean, because we've all worn helmets at one point of our life.
It's Christmas dinner is what it is. If it walks and talks like one.
But they've done studies to where neurodivergence, people with autism or ADHD have a higher capability of possibly manifesting this stuff, poltergeist activity, and possible.
Oh, so now you're going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, no, it was
because you're talking about, and I'll be honest, that was a rabbit hole I was going to go down.
Yeah,
we're talking about manifesting something into reality.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's not just from Buddhism. There are miracles where food has been created by saints.
Wine turned into water.
Not even that miracle. I'm just saying.
Or how about water turned into wine?
There is a.
What did I say?
You said wine turned into water.
My bad.
He's so hot. He just wants water right now.
Here I am. I'm the not so bright.
What I'm saying is, there are miracles that have been known that people were to manifest something out of nothing and would materialize food for people.
Yeah.
Given the fact that we're talking about tulpas, of where you imagine something enough, it becomes reality.
So there's a great scene in the movie Hook where they're all the Lost Boys and Robin Williams are sitting down for dinner, and he's like, "Where's the food?" And they're like, "Close your eyes, imagine it." And all of a sudden, the table's full of all this glorious food. That's exactly.
But I mean, there are miracles talked about it, and it. Not to get too religious on it. There is documentation of things being manifested out of nothing through belief. Golems and
My honeymoon.
Your honeymoon, yeah.
Ouch.
Wow.
Sorry, Liz.
But I mean,
me too.
As we're talking about it, you can go down a very large rabbit hole as how wide you want to move your parameters. Because like most people, when they talk about tulpas, don't know about Buddhism. They're thinking of imaginary friends from supernatural, or they understand the Slender Man, Hat Man, and even somebody brought up Bloody Mary could be considered a tulpa, or the Candy Man with the hook. They made a movie about.
Absolutely.
All these, and I had a conversation with a Wiccan about it, and she believed that there's a whole bunch of spirits that don't really have purpose. That they're not human spirits. They're like just spirits that float around. That they're the ones that, as you manifest and talk about, that gives them purpose, and that draws them to an area, and then enough of them are there that then it manifests.
So
I think that's really
possible. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if Jason. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I do have a question, but I'll wait till you finish your thing.
So I don't know. And
just one.
Jason, I hope it's okay if I share this story. Which I don't.
Too late now,
because I'm going to share it anyway. I don't know if he's told you the stories about him experiencing what he thinks was a wandering evil spirit that came into his life, and
I've never heard of that.
I think he briefly
seen it in his bedroom.
Yeah,
that maybe like it came by, it didn't have purpose, and now all of a sudden he was doing paranormal investigations, all this stuff, and it saw purpose, so it manifested. Is that where you're going?
Yeah,
with that? Okay.
No, very similar.
I just wanted to put it in context.
No different than as we briefly have talked about us talking about paranormal activity causing paranormal activity to happen. Things are around us you can't see. As we talk and give belief in something, it can then manifest. No different than when you're talking about poltergeists are generally related. Most people have a theory that it could be manifested from a preteen female that can cause all sorts of objects. Yeah, which is generally chairs moving, keys disappearing, but there's no rhyme or reason to it because it's. Right. But all this is in that linear. If you look at it, it's something with enough belief in manifesting, whether it's conscious or subconscious, creates this.
So I have to wonder myself, just when what you're talking about right now and researching the neurodivergence and all that kind of stuff, is that it might not possibly be the collective belief, but maybe people that are neurodivergent or have autism or some sort of neurochemical effect, that they've unlocked a portion of their brain that society hasn't developed
or normally
yet or forgotten about, that they're able to manifest things
without realizing
it.
Yeah. And like we talked about briefly before the internet, that was very hard to get a large group of people. Now on Reddit, you can have millions, if not billions of people.
That's real.
Believing in something, and depending on what you believe. I mean, what do you guys think? Put in the comments if you think that if enough people believe in it, can they manifest something out of thin air?
Dude, that's an awesome shirt. Like, where'd you get it? Yeah, man. This was my favorite new podcast. Listening to Chumming With The Spirits. They talk about paranormal, trip with tea. Pretty badass. Check it out. Of course, then I check them out at. You can check them out on cwtspodcast.com. They actually have our shirts for sale. They got really cool ranking gear. It's pretty awesome. If you like to drink and you like to talk about ghosts, Bigfoot, and crap, I highly recommend checking them out. But whoever did that logo is probably pretty cool. Yeah. Go check them out.
So welcome back. We were talking about the topic of tulpas, and you may have noticed that I added some flair to our drab table here. This is a doll that we found when we were in Atchison, and Dave graciously purchased it for me because I didn't have cash on me. But I just want you guys to think about, while we're filming the rest of this episode, trying to get that doll to come to life and see if anything happens. Right?
Turn it into a tulpa?
Yeah.
Isn't that like halfway cheating since it's already an item?
No.
Yeah. So I'm not doing. But I have a quick question before we go down this hole, if you will. My son, my older son Dave, which you both know.
Yeah.
We know both of them.
Yeah.
we know both.
Pretty bright kid, right? Oh, man, I guess he is now.
Yeah.
At 4 years, what's that?
Both young men.
Yeah, yes.
Fine young men.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. When he was 4 years old, we had parents as teachers, but he would talk to this guy called Andy when he was by himself. I'm like, David, who are you talking to? He goes, I'm talking to Andy. And kind of scared me and my wife, but he was always playing with this gray guy, which kind of scared me. He called it gray guy, who he took everywhere, as well as his Humpty Dumpty. So I asked David, hey, do you remember Andy? And he goes, absolutely. I go, what did he look like? He goes, we had long hair pulled back in a ponytail, wore swim trunks and no shirt.
So,
is that a tulpa? Is that an imaginary friend? Or was my son seeing
one and the same?
Or it could actually be a spirit.
A spirit.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, because you said gray man, the thing that he was seeing was gray, or the character that he was...
The one he always
carried.
Because I was like, that brings in a good point that we were talking about in one of our previous podcasts, that maybe that's how it manifests, because they were colorblind.
Oh, yeah.
So I went down that rabbit hole, but I wasn't...
No, all good. But he described him, which obviously didn't look like his Humpty Dumpty or his gray guy, but he, to this day, he remembers a long-haired man with his hair pulled back in a ponytail.
Maybe he just saw a
with
picture
swim
of you
trunks
from the 80s.
I never had my hair pulled back in a ponytail. Now, I did have a lot of hair.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, it looked like a lion's mane. It wasn't really...
That's a nice way of putting it.
Well... That's how I looked at it.
It was a style.
It definitely was a style.
It was the 80s, and, I was playing guitar. I wanted to be David Coverdale, but I was neither one of those. So
that's fascinating. I mean,
But it does fall under the realm of tulpa.
Yeah.
Imaginary friend. And we briefly off camera talked about it. It's like, I think there's a fine line on the imaginary friend versus actual spirits. I mean, there's some imagination. Like, it's one thing if you're creating this thing and it's doing what you're thinking versus an independent, Andy talking to him, and like he didn't build that. It's not, because normally when you hear it, it's like it's a unicorn with fluffy hair, or it's a Raggedy Ann.
Did you read my notes?
Where does a 4-year-old who hasn't been in school yet come up not only with a name but a description like that?
There's a pretty cool thing that's we got nowadays called
TV.
TV.
Mm-hmm. So you think you got that from Toy Story or something like that?
It's
Andy doesn't.
Nothing's
have
out of the realm of possibility.
No, he does not.
Trunks.
Right.
Yeah, nothing's out of the realm of possibility. I mean,
as you were,
plausible.
you were getting ready to go down a funny story.
Yeah,
you were saying about a tulpa.
So there's a group, what they call a group of people that actively seek the phenomenon, and they're called tulpamancers.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
So in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a show called My Little Pony, a cartoon show that came out. And the adults in that show attempted to use meditation and lucid dreaming techniques to create imaginary My Little Pony friends. And I thought that was hilarious. The what?
Bronies?
Bronies, yes. And
you don't know anything about this?
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
I thought it was...
I know about the tulpamancers.
Yeah. They people that were actively seeking and trying to create imaginary friends for themselves, which is sad in its own way, but...
It's horrible.
I just thought it was funny. A quick little... Not historical for us, but maybe for some people.
It does follow under... I mean, there are groups of people, and they actually name themselves tulpamancers that were trying to create their own... which, did they succeed? I don't know. Were they the ones behind the Reddit post for the Slender Man?
That's
or is everybody that hopped on that Slender Man Reddit post, do they technically become tulpamancies because they were feeding into it?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Or the Rake is another one I just remembered.
The Wraith, yes.
Rake. The Wraith is an actual known spirit type creature. The Rake is a long, usually is on 4 legs. Do you not know what the Rake is?
Arm and legs, right?
I know what a rake
It crawls on arms and legs. Not 4 legs, but arms and legs.
Arms and legs.
No hair.
Yeah,
white,
it's all
like
white.
A grayish white.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think maybe a friend of ours maybe came across on a road one day. This way got his car. That's
what he thinks.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, I had never heard that term before. That creature. That would be an interesting topic to talk about.
I cannot believe you don't know what a rake is. Wow.
I'm sorry.
You use it to do leaves.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I'm totally confused right now. Are you guys gaslighting me?
No, we're not gaslighting you. Not this time.
Absolutely
not.
We have no lighting towards your gas whatsoever. We have learned our lesson.
Yeah, no gas around Paris.
I'm not regrowing eyebrows again.
Took a while.
Yeah. So before we get into a segue in the subject, did you guys have any other thoughts on tulpas before I switch contextual thought patterns?
I want to hear. I mean, you basically. I
mean, you did a lot of research. Mm-hmm. You haven't really caught up with me and Dave yet, but I mean, you're doing a lot of research.
You're going to get there.
We already just threw out a tulpa you didn't know about.
I think I've caught up with Dave.
Dave knew what a rake was.
Yeah, I
you
did.
guys suck.
So what's your next?
No, obviously your research.
So
go ahead.
I think, and we talked about this briefly in the episode random number generators.
Number one.
There was you guys. In the 1970s, there was Dr. Owen, and he created the study to create the entity Philip. Remember that?
Yeah.
So
check back on the episode.
Yes.
So you know what? We have some context of what's going on.
So the experiment brought together a lot of.
That goes for you too.
It brought together a lot of eclectic and ordinary people together, all interested in the paranormal, that would meet regularly and collectively focus on manifesting this entity called Philip. And they created a whole backstory of who this fictional possible historical character was, and I can read that description to you if you want me to, for everybody, so that they can get a
or you could post it now so they could read it,
or I can post it. But he was an aristocratic Englishman that was really well known and all this other stuff. And they would get together and they would do measurement readings and all sorts of
scientific methods try to prove whether or not they could generate this person.
It drove some of them nuts because they were experiencing things. What are your guys' thoughts on the whole situation? Do you think that was
a unique thing?
Or do you think that was careless and callous to try to conceptualize something along those realms?
No, I think they had the right idea behind it. The technology, though, to be able to track and prove anything wasn't there yet. And it's no different. I mean, there's a fine line between a whole bunch of people believing something together and a cult.
Well, that's what I was going to get. So I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that.
You can get pressure. Like one of my favorite Star Trek is Picard with the lights. You do enough psychological pressure on somebody, they will start seeing something that's not there because they believe that's what it needs to be, which can have happened in cults. But if unchecked and not knowing what you're doing, you could inadvertently send yourself down a spiral.
Yeah,
because you're now doubting your beliefs, your moral compass, depending on how you. It's no different than the big question, like if aliens are really real, how does that affect everybody that's very devout, right? I mean, so that's when you're getting to, if you start seeing readings that look to be that you can manifest somebody or something, that changes your thought process on reality, which will crack certain people. I mean, not everybody handles world-altering things, like especially if you're a scientific person, because they're probably going in there. It's like the skeptic going into a haunted house and then getting touched or hit, and then they have to sit there and realize something just did something to me that I couldn't see and realize. Where does the reality go from there?
So, I'm sorry.
No, I said I think that frame of thought, they're idiots. They're absolutely have no common sense, and most people of the scientific mind they're usually liberal, idiot ideas that they're going to manifest, and they cannot deal with reality. So they're trying to do this to change their whatever their reasoning is for. And I think it's very careless. And I think they're absolutely, in my opinion, absolute idiots.
So I think it also, you have to look at the time period that this experimentation,
the 70s,
was done in the 70s.
A whole bunch of drugs.
Him and his wife
with drugs, right?
No,
they weren't. I mean, they were just saying that.
Like it wasn't really, what do you call it, mainstream or thought of well in the scientific community to do research into the paranormal and all this stuff. Him and his wife were actually shunned by the scientific community for even.
Well, yeah.
Well, I mean,
thinking about
here's the difference: is back then it was considered paranormal.
Do you think it would have been different if it was done today?
If it's done today, it absolutely would be looked at differently, and I don't know if it'd even be looked at as paranormal other than sci-fi.
Not. I wouldn't think it. Where's the responsibility behind this?
What do you mean responsibility?
People are doing this. They're bringing people together to help them imagine a whole different world because they can't deal with the world they're in. Because that's what it sounds like to me. It's like there's no responsibility. There's no common sense whatsoever. It sounds like two idiot scientists trying to make something happen.
No, I think they were trying to delve into the realm of how the human mind can alter and manipulate the reality around them.
And how did it affect the people?
Well, no, some people
couldn't handle it.
That's right.
But
where's the responsibility behind that?
That's what I'm saying. If you do it in today's day and age, you have to have certain parameters and controls to
So
common sense was out the windows. It sounds like they're idiots, and they altered people's lives.
They didn't have any aspect of what they didn't think anything
was going to happen.
Really?
So they really.
So why do it?
To see if it's one of those things. It's a scientific study to see if it happens.
I mean,
because what the other part of that is, if you can manifest somebody that has a backstory, then that backstory will start appearing in history.
Yeah,
and that would be an indication that which is also the butterfly effect and a whole bunch of other Mandela effect. Possibly.
Well, that's where I thought you were going with.
But that's what they're trying to get. Because it's one thing if you're trying to manifest a being into, you're going to create
into existence.
Yeah, like a fluffy teddy bear. They literally had a backstory of how it was a aristocrat and he had a history coming up.
Yep.
And by them focusing and trying to make that happen, in theory, if you could generate that and that backstory existed, that backstory then shows up in history. And that then starts messing with your point of reality, which they're thinking, it's not going to be possible. This is just a thought experiment. And I think to an extent, they went too far with the thought experience because they started cracking people.
Yes.
Because evidently they were getting something that was indicative of what because I don't have all the data on what they ended up having, but they did have people.
So that's where I wanted to go next. So they weren't really getting any activity during the experimentations, but in 1974 they decided to take a break from the experimentation, and some of the people that were involved in it started to have poltergeist activity kind of happen in their homes, where lights flickering, noises, all sorts of stuff. And when they reconvened to start doing the experimentation again, all that stuff stopped. So the thought that was going on was that Philip had been conjured and created, and he was upset and bored that they weren't.
And was trying to force
them back into the experimentation process.
Or was that a tulpa that was almost formed and realized when they stopped had enough energy to harass people to try to get them to keep on conjuring it up?
That's what I'm talking about, the responsibility and the common sense behind something. It sounds like idiotic idea to me.
Yeah,
but back then there was a big distortion between because tulpas technically are religious and spiritual versus a scientific approach of we're going to disprove that any of that stuff is real.
Yep.
And so they're going through, they're trying, and but when they stopped, it's like playing with fire when you don't know what fire is, right? I mean, because you don't. Oh, it looks. I mean, it doesn't look hot until you touch it.
It's like being a little kid. Now, what happens if I put this in the light socket? You're not going to know until you try.
You're what happens when you put it in the light socket.
But I have to say, if anybody's interested in learning more about this experimentation, there's a phenomenal book out there called Conjuring Up Philip. I highly recommend checking it out. Go to the library and rent it if you don't want to spend the money on it.
Or if you know more about it, let us know.
I think people really don't think to go to the libraries anymore, which shocks me.
My wife does. She's too cheap to buy a book.
I'll just get it on Amazon or Kindle or whatnot.
Not my wife.
Odyssey.
Keep the tradition alive. Go to a library. I mean,
do your research.
I mean, they're still doing experimentations on this shit in today's time, trying to figure things out. Some of the experiments that they're working on now are seeing if they can quantify and capture souls after people have expired.
That has been going on for
I know
decades.
So did I touch a nerve? I'm sorry.
No.
But let's get back onto the tulpa.
Tulpa, yeah. That's really all I had to go on with the tulpa. I think it's a real phenomenon, in my opinion, but it's open for loose interpretation. Like you said, it could be a multitude of phenomenon that are happening. I mean, it could be something that is passing by that realizes that someone's trying to interact with something, and
that's opening the door.
Now. Yeah, I mean,
and then jump right in.
It's all based on.
I didn't mean to.
No.
I didn't mean to disrupt her. I kind of jumped in there.
I think it's all dependent on the person, the intent, the neurochemistry that they're putting off.
I don't think we could put it in just one box because like we briefly talked about the tulpa. Your mind believing into something and it's in your reality versus your mind believing in it and then becomes reality. Poltergeist technically could possibly fit into that. We know of multiple newer age creatures that have cryptids that could be tulpas because of the amount of talking that there's no history of them.
Yeah.
But there's now video footage of stuff or, could be faked, but...
Because I don't know. You guys were talking about Bigfoot earlier, and I wanted to throw my 2 cents in on that, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Whatever. You could look at it as that could possibly be a tulpa in the regards to all of the lore and whatnot from tribes and stuff calling mountain devils. And I'm not saying that's what it is, but
there are certain tribes that believe that they were more spiritual, like forest spirits or guardians, which could easily be a tulpa because they believed they needed, and they had other beliefs. I'll
let you know what Matt Orton's
I would love to know
on that. Matt,
that.
if you end up watching one of these, let us know.
Or anybody that watches this, give us your thought process on that. Sure. I mean, we're always open to comments, and we'll try to get back to you on that.
Yep. Did you guys have any final comments or thoughts on the whole thing? I want to know what you think.
Well, I already told you. I thought that was done with a lot of
not
negligence.
Not the experiment. I'm talking about tulpas.
As far as tulpa?
Yeah.
Tulpas in general.
So from what I've read, that it can be very harmful for some people, but some people that are not in the right mind, that are like maybe suicidal or something like that, from what little research I did, because I don't research, that it keeps people from harming themselves. So, which is just a couple pages I read on something else, but I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I don't. It's.
What is it about our psychological essence that we have to create something that'll accept us?
Yeah. Well,
so that we don't harm ourselves. Where does that come from?
Ask the guy that lost his job, his wife and kids, and he's living on his own, and he has nothing to believe in. But
he's still breathing.
He lost his faith or whatever. So he starts, he's in a bad place. So he starts imagining things, or
worst case scenarios. It just you literally dig yourself into an even worse place. I mean, I
just never thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna get technical, manifesting your own destiny. If you're always thinking negative, you have negative negative things happen to you, that would be technically a form of a tulpa. Like you're always locking your keys in your car.
Like someone's truck, like 5 times.
Yeah. Or like getting a nail in your truck multiple times every time you go to on a location.
Yeah, locking your keys in your car that can't be locked.
Well, not supposed to be locked. Yeah, twice. How's that happen?
But I mean, it wasn't America built on manifest destiny.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it's up to you. It's how, and it's
make
how
your
you
own
react
destiny.
To it. It's how you react to it too, though, right? You can always look. Well, hey, at least the car didn't blow when I was on the highway.
Yeah,
and could have caused an accident. I was able to fix it in time.
Maybe they were things happening to you to keep you and delay you from a wreck that was already there. Or a lot of times we look at negative things that happen to us as they're negative, but they may be delaying us and protecting us from something that we weren't there at that moment in time.
Absolutely.
That's deep, dude.
I've always believed
that's really deep.
I've always believed.
Yeah, there's a small line of fate. You know, it's like when you go to look for your keys in your house and you can't find them, and it delays you for like 15 minutes.
Yeah,
and then you find out there's a major wreck in that area. You're like, what?
Can faith lead to fate?
I think a little bit. I mean, that's a whole nother deep dive that we'll cover in another episode.
All I know is when things have happened, has delayed me, and stuff has happened, I'm just very thankful for it, and I express that.
Other than the rock in the windshield, but yeah.
Well, I wasn't ready for that.
Or backing into a parking spot.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for that either.
Let us know what you think on the subject of tulpas, and while you're online, be sure to go check out our YouTube, our social medias that we have. We're basically on every platform. Website, cwtspodcast.com. You can get some amazing merch for our podcast. Check out some of the books that we have on there.
Give us more ideas for
ideas.
Or look at possibly subscribing to Patreon if you want more in-depth information on podcasts that we have done. We were going to be doing a new series on that, talking about in-depth on the rabbit holes, because unfortunately we can't film 7.5 hours and put it up on YouTube.
Not in this room.
No.
Also, let us know if you have a drink recommendation or like you have a beer or a brewery that you're fond of or something like that we should try out. We're always looking for new things to drink. Like I'm drinking Bomb Pop flavored twisted tea right now, and it's phenomenal. Just stuff like that. We're always Jeremy has recently found
Pabst Light. Is Pabst Blue Ribbon Light sponsored by Myth Monsters and Mullets?
Not Myths, Mullets, and Monsters.
No. I've really enjoyed it. Very light, refreshing. I can't complain. But yeah, fuzzy navels, screwdrivers. I mean,
slippery nipples. Those are all shots, aren't they? We'll stick to Fireball for a shot.
Are we going down another rabbit hole?
Yeah. So until next time.
Thank you.